That Monday started like any other. The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., and I already felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. 3 overdue projects at work, mounting bills, and a recent breakup that still ached in my chest. I needed an escape, a place where I could empty my mind and focus only on myself for a few hours. I decided the gym would be my refuge that day. After all, they say exercise releases endorphins, and God knows I needed that. I grabbed my bag, my headphones, and left home determined to sweat out all my frustrations. Little did I know that this simple decision would completely change the course of my week. I arrived at the gym still drowsy, greeted the receptionist with a nod, and headed straight for the treadmill. I wanted to start with light cardio before moving on to weights. I put on my headphones, selected my motivational playlist, and started running. That's when I noticed, through the reflection in the mirror in front of me, a brown-haired woman watching me. I didn't give it much importance. After all, crossed glances are common in gyms, but there was something different about the way she stared at me. I finished my cardio and went to the weight area. I started with bench press, 3 sets of 12 reps. On the second set, I felt a presence beside me. It was her, the brown-haired woman. Need help with the weight? She asked with a smile that seemed to hide something more. I'm good, thanks, I replied politely, trying to stay focused. My name is Julia. I'm a personal trainer here. If you need any guidance, just call me. I nodded and continued my workout. But something told me this wouldn't be an isolated encounter. After finishing the bench press, I moved to the pull-down machine. That's when I noticed a second woman, blonde, wearing a red workout set, positioning herself on the machine next to mine. Our eyes met, and she smiled in a way that instantly made me uncomfortable. This machine is great for the back, don't you think? She commented, adjusting the weight. Yes, it's one of my favorites, I replied automatically. I'm Vanessa. I come here every day at this time. I've never seen you here before. I usually come at night, but today I needed to change my routine. If you've ever felt watched in a public place, you know exactly how I was feeling at that moment. But what happened next was even more surprising. I decided to take a break to drink water. As I headed to the water fountain, a third woman, with short hair and penetrating eyes, accidentally bumped into me. Sorry, she said, holding my arm. Longer than necessary. I'm new here and still getting used to the space. No problem, I replied, trying to sound casual. My name is Camila, and yours? Before I could answer, Julia, the personal trainer, appeared again. I see you've already met Camila. She started yesterday. The atmosphere between the two was strange, as if there was a silent competition happening. I decided it was time to get back to my workout. I went to the ABS area, hoping to find some peace. But the universe had other plans. A fourth woman, with a perfect bun and impeccable gym clothes, approached me while I was doing abs. Your posture is wrong, she said, without ceremony. Can I show you the correct form? Before I could answer, she was already positioning herself next to me, demonstrating the exercise. Her name was Renata, and she was a physiotherapist. What happened in the next 2 hours was a social dance I had never experienced before. The 4 women, Julia, Vanessa, Camila, and Renata, seemed to orbit around me, each with a different approach, but all with the same goal, to get my attention. Julia offered professional training tips, but always with a personal touch. Vanessa was more direct, asking questions about my personal life. Camila used the lost newbie card, constantly asking for help, and Renata, with her professional posture, always found something to correct in my workout. I confess that, at first, I was flattered. Who wouldn't like to receive so much attention? But I soon realized there was something more going on. During a break, I went to the locker room to get my phone. That's when I overheard a conversation between 2 guys who trained there. Did you see their new challenge? One of them asked. Which one? The conquest in a week. The other replied, exactly. They choose a guy and compete to see who can get a date first. I heard they bet money on it. My stomach sank. Was I the target this time? A simple pawn in a conquest game. I decided to test my theory. I returned to the training area and, purposely, started giving more attention to Julia. As expected, the other three intensified their approaches. Vanessa accidentally dropped her water bottle near me, creating an excuse to start a new conversation. Camila asked for my number, claiming she needed workout tips, and Renata, surprisingly, invited me for a free physical assessment at her clinic. That's when I realized I could turn the game in my favor. If they wanted to play, I could too. Not in the same way, of course, but I could use the situation to better understand social dynamics and, perhaps, make genuine new friendships. I started talking more openly with all of them, but without showing romantic interest in any. I talked about my personal projects, my hobbies, my passion for photography, and my recent decision to prioritize my mental well-being. The most surprising thing was seeing how the dynamic changed. As I showed myself to be authentic, without playing the seduction game, I noticed that Julia and Renata began to see me differently. Our conversations became deeper, less superficial. Vanessa, realizing her tactics weren't working, eventually gave up and focused on another gym goer. Camila, on the other hand, revealed that she really was new to the city and was just trying to make friends. Following the advice of the other three. By the end of that extraordinary week, I had learned more about human relationships than in years of social life. I learned that not everything is what it seems, that intentions can be masked, and that authenticity is the best defense against social games. And the most amazing thing, I ended up making two true friends, Julia, who eventually confessed about the challenge and apologized profusely, became my official personal trainer, and Renata, with whom I share a love for photography, became a partner for photo walks on weekends. As for Vanessa and Camila, Vanessa found her next target and continued with her games. Camila, after realizing the nature of the challenge, decided to distance herself from the group and focus on making genuine connections. If you're wondering if there was romance at any point, the answer is no. And that was the best part of it all. I discovered that true friendships, based on common interests and mutual respect, are much more valuable than fleeting conquests. Life has these twists and turns, doesn't it? When we least expect it, we're placed in situations that force us to grow. And that's exactly what happened to me after that unusual week. What impressed me most was how that experience changed my perspective on relationships in general. Before, I was the type of guy who measured my worth by the romantic interest I aroused in people. After that episode at the gym, I realized how limiting that mindset was. I remember a specific conversation with Julia about a month after discovering the challenge. We were finishing a particularly intense training session when she asked, "Were you upset when you found out about the bet?" I thought for a few seconds before answering. At first, yes, I felt like an object, but then I realized that it wasn't about me. It was about you all and the dynamic between you. She nodded, visibly uncomfortable with the memory. You know what's most ironic? I continued. I came to the gym seeking peace, running away from problems, and ended up in the middle of a social game. But that game ended up teaching me more about myself than months of solitary introspection would have done. Julia smiled, relieved by my positive perspective. It was at that moment that she told me something that changed my view of what happened even more. The challenge started as a silly joke between bored friends, but it ended up revealing a lot about each of us. Vanessa continues with her games because she's afraid of real connections. Camila just wanted to belong to a group. Renata used her professional posture as a shield. And I used my work as an excuse to approach people I was interested in. This conversation made me realize that we all, in some way, use social masks. The difference lies in recognizing them and deciding when it's time to remove them. The following weeks brought significant changes to my routine. In addition to training with Julia and photo outings with Renata, I started participating in a running group on Saturdays. It was Renata who invited me, saying it would be good for my cardiovascular endurance. She didn't mention that the group was mostly composed of women in their 30s, all extremely competitive. My first run with them was revealing. I finished second to last, panting and with trembling legs. The women in the group, far from mocking my mediocre performance, encouraged me to continue, sharing their own stories of difficult beginnings. It was in this group that I met Helena, a 35-year-old marathoner with a fascinating life story, a former executive at a multinational. She gave up everything to dedicate herself to sports after severe burnout. Our connection was immediate and genuine, based on similar life experiences and a compatible worldview. Unlike the four women from the gym, Helena never showed interest beyond friendship, and, ironically, it was precisely this absence of romantic expectations that allowed us to truly get closer. Our conversations during long runs became therapeutic for both of us. One day, after completing 15 kilometers together, Helena asked me a question that kept hammering in my head for days. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe you attracted those for women precisely because you were seeking peace? The energy we emit attracts situations that challenge us exactly where we need to grow. That sounded like one of those self-help phrases I would normally ignore, but coming from Helena, such a down-to-earth person, it gained a different weight, and she was right. I was seeking external peace when what I really needed was to find internal balance. The four women and their plans for me were just the catalyst for a much deeper transformation. 6 months have passed since that fateful Monday. Today, my routine is completely different. I train with Julia 3 times a week. I run with the group on Saturdays. I photograph with Renata on Sundays. And on other days, I find time to meditate, read, and work on personal projects I've always postponed. The overdue projects at work, successfully completed, the accumulated bills, organized and under control, the painful breakup, a distant memory that no longer causes pain. And what about the 4 women who had plans for me? Julia and Renata became true friends. Camila eventually moved to another city, but we maintain occasional contact on social media. Vanessa continues to be Vanessa, always looking for the next challenge, the next game, the next conquest. Sometimes I see her at the gym, and we exchange polite smiles, like two players who recognize each other's strategies. Helena and we developed a solid friendship based on mutual respect and admiration. And yes, eventually that friendship evolved into something more, something natural, without games or challenges. Just two people who genuinely enjoy each other's company. If you're going through a difficult time, seeking peace in external places, perhaps my story can serve as inspiration. Sometimes the greatest learnings come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes, for women with plans for you might be exactly what you need to find your own path. And if you identified with any part of this story, know that you're not alone. All of us, at some point, find ourselves seeking outside what can only be found within. The gym continues to be my refuge, but now for different reasons. I no longer go there to escape problems, but to celebrate my journey, to strengthen not only my body, but also my mind and spirit. And what about you? What has been your refuge? And what unexpected plans has life recently put in your way? Think about it, and remember, sometimes what seems like a detour is actually the right path disguised as coincidence. Life is funny that way. You leave home seeking peace at the gym and find much more than you expected.